Hello and welcome to the Authority of Love on Family Foundation Friday with our co-host David Walls. I'm your host Greg Williams, and we're glad that you as listeners or viewers, however you're connecting with us, we're glad that you've joined us. Thank you. David, good to see you again, brother.
It's good to be with you.
We are got several things going on. We want to get into those, but I know you told me you were going to go see a documentary here. I know you're going to report on it more, but we've been talking about this a bit.
Yes, there's a interesting documentary that is going to be showing this week in select theaters, and I hope presume it'll be more publicly available at some point after that.
I would think so.
Produced by our friends at LifeWise Academy. I believe it's called Off School Property. And, it's going to be looking at kind of, I think, the history of the church and state and, how the Bible was removed from schools and obviously all the problems associated with that. But then the way in which, LifeWise and others are taking advantage of the constitutional right to have religious release time and to have Bible instruction during school hours, off school campus, for 1 hour a week. And
not forcing anybody to do it.
Right, absolutely.
Right. No, but making it available.
So I look forward to maybe giving a movie review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I appreciate you mentioning that because we did that. You and I both did that with Truth Rising out of the Colson Center and Focus on the Family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that seems to be, there's another one I sent to you. We'll probably talk about it more in future shows.
In the Truth Rising one, you can go to the truthrising.org.
Yes.
That is free to watch now on the streaming on the website.
So that seems to be, as we know, with podcast and viewing and all these things, the way that people are going, because it makes a pretty strong emotional appeal, but it gives you the truth.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to see. By the way, I would appreciate your prayers, asking for your prayers, as I'll be leaving in a couple of weeks to go down to American Family Association, who is hosting the Protect Child Health Coalition Summit, and I will be one of the speakers for that. And so I would appreciate your prayers for that. It's a wonderful group that does sort of what you do here, David, on the state level. They're doing it all around the country and even around the world on these same issues. And so I'll be speaking to those on November 7th and 8th, and certainly would appreciate your prayers. We have some really good news to report, David. There has been a precipitous decline in those who are identifying, just in the last couple of years, those who are identifying as transgender. Speak to our audience about what's going on with that.
Yeah, there was a really noteworthy new study that's gotten some good attention in the Christian media and Christian public policy space, but was specifically looking at, and the title of the study is The Decline of Trans and Queer Identity Amongst Young Americans. Specifically, I think they looked at something between 50 and 70,000 college students. And the short of it is, and this has been backed up in several other studies that have kind of been released, showing that those that identify opposite of their biological sex amongst these students, in one study had been cut in a third. In this study, I think it was something like almost a half. Recent study showing drops from 6 to 7% all the way down to 3%. And so I do think those are certainly encouraging numbers, and I think there's a lot of factors, Greg, that are going into this. One is, I think it reaffirms what we've known, is that this is a social contagion.
Yes.
You do not see an explosion of young people all of a sudden claiming that they have a transgender identity, identifying opposite of their biological sex. There are just too many factors and indications that are showing that this is just something that's cultural pressure, peer pressure,
deception.
Yes,
all those things going on.
The way, particularly for young girls, the affirmation and the praise that has been giving, where this is had been unfortunately something that was looked at as a cool, socially accepted thing you were going to get praised for doing, and certainly I also think the reality is this is a false ideology. It's a dead end. It's something that is in a complete rejection of creation order, of God's revealed truths. And then I also think there have been some impacts from the public policy battles that we've been involved in, where we have been able, and others been, to communicate the tremendous harm that is done from going down this path, whether you're talking about putting kids on puberty blockers and on cross-sex hormones, on even surgery, mutilating healthy body parts, and the number of states, over half states that have passed laws banning this practice. I mean, I think there are a number of factors related to that, and I do think the question, though, Greg, is this a trends come and go?
Yeah.
And this what's also interesting, Greg, is those that are pushing this ideology would say, well, it's not a trend. These are just folks that were born that way, right?
Yeah.
Well, even those that promote this agenda, and I would say some of these studies are done from folks that do not come from a biblical worldview like you and I do.
Right.
The way they're talking about this makes this very clear that this is a social contagion.
Yes. And that is the thing that we have said all along, is that if you weren't giving into and deceiving and pushing these kids toward that, we've known all along that 90% or more of them would return and realize who they really are, who they were created to be in their sex and their gender. Here's another side of that, David, that I think we need to be positive about and encourage people. With these kind of studies coming out that reveal the truth that we've known all along, and the social contagion is declining rapidly and heavily, the thing that we need to be aware of is that one of the things we've been talking about in a case before the Supreme Court was Childs versus Salazar. There's others out there, but if we can get that now and say, wait a minute, why would we ban that therapy when we realize this is not what they've said it is all along? Yeah. So let's allow that conversion therapy where they wrongly converted kids. We know that right here in Kentucky. Yeah. They deceived and hid it from parents and everything else. So let's allow counselors, and in particular Christian and pastoral counselors, to help them realize, not convert, but realize who they actually are. And be content with that. And as we've done that, then I think we'll be able to really give these young people and even young adults the help that they truly need.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great connection, Greg, and it really shows, again, the harm from a public policy standpoint that these so-called conversion therapy, what I would call essentially a biblical counseling ban on sexuality issues, the harm of those, because the reality is what this data is showing is that we have young people that are jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
And so how could you possibly then come
like
in
they
and
do,
say,
like they never do that in anything else, right?
that you couldn't counsel someone towards this because this is a defined characteristic in terms of who they are.
And they admit that they do that, too.
Right,
they
absolutely.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, it really kind of blows a huge hole into the ideology of the LGBTQ movement at its core.
Right.
And so another reminder why we continue to be praying for the Supreme Court as they've heard oral arguments on a case out of Colorado on that topic. And then we also have, we know we don't have a date set yet, but as we've mentioned, Supreme Court will be hearing arguments over Save Women's Sports issue coming up probably early next year as well. So look, this is a reminder. So good news, right?
Yes.
The survey showing that these identities are coming down among young people. But do we claim victory?
No.
Absolutely not. This is another reminder.
Only in the Lord, but no, we got to keep fighting.
Right. No, but this is a reminder for Christians why we have to lean into this moment. We don't know if this is a permanent trend or just a little downward blip where things start going back the other direction. The reality is, we know in Ephesians 4, we're called to proclaim truth in love, and we have an obligation as Christians to lean into this moment in particular and say, we've got young people who are confused. Even though this is a good trend, it says it was up, then it was down. That's a sign of deep confusion.
And let's not push them deeper in their confusion. Right. Let's help them, is what we've been talking about. Let's help them get back to who they were actually created to be.
Absolutely.
Who they were. And that's the end that we're looking for. We've seen this coming for a little while. We talked a few months ago about in Europe them shutting down the transition clinics and all the things because they were seeing that the things that were being said in the pseudoscience that suicide rates were higher and all that were actually not true.
Right.
And they were making it worse. So kudos to those, whether they have our worldview or not, biblical worldview or not, that they were at least looking at the science and saying, we can't continue to push these things on these kids. Let's find other ways to work to help them. And that's what we hope to see. Now, that brings us to another issue that we talked briefly about last week, David, and that is Barna's new research on saying that the churchgoers are not being helped to prepare for the issues of the culture from a biblical standpoint, but they would like to be.
Yeah. We, George Barna, with our friends at the Family Research Council, published an update to some of his survey data. We talked a little bit about it last week, but some of the key ones that I really want to share is that those who attend church regularly, those that claim that they have a biblical worldview fell sharply.
In just 2 years, David. In just over 2 years.
Fell something, I think, from 57% to 43%. And this spilled over into issues, essentially questions being asked, do you believe the Bible clearly addresses some of the moral issues of the day? We saw a slip in marriage. We saw a slip in religious liberty. And one of the biggest ones was a slip on the morality of abortion, from 65% saying, yes, we believe that the Bible speaks clearly to the immorality of abortion, down to 51%, Greg.
All of those were significant drops,
Absolutely.
double-figure drops in every one of these things that the Bible does clearly speak on.
Absolutely. And so, and I think, so all of those are concerning. The one encouraging thing continues to be that those that attend church regularly are desiring, seem to be indicating that they want to be equipped on these issues. And there's just a lot of disconnects that you see in the data. And Greg, I think so much of it is, I think, many Christians would say they believe the right things. They believe we're created in the image of God, male and female, that He designed marriage and all these things. But when you take them into the real world,
that's right.
We're seeing this
they can't
disconnect.
Defend it. They can't defend it,
We're seeing
David.
this disconnect. And so, and another big reminder on the issue of abortion, how this issue is just continuing to be front and center, is the battle over the chemical abortion pill.
Yes.
And so, and even we're seeing some disconnect in the Trump administration recently, where we were thankful that the FDA announced that they were going to do a review of mifepristone
after the Family Research Council's research came out.
And many others. But then we saw just here more recently that the FDA had approved a new generic version of the mifepristone pill
that had been in the queue for 4 years.
Right, which is going to lead to more proliferation of the deadly chemical abortion pill. Which, again, just to remind folks, that is the battle line now on the issue of abortion. It is the chemical abortion pill that takes the life of an unborn child, and as data has shown, is even more risky for the health and safety of the mother. And so that is going to continue to be. We've had some good conversations, Greg, in the last few weeks with some legislators. This needs to be an issue that the General Assembly looks to addressing. We have got to have more enforcement mechanisms on hand to deal with the proliferation of the chemical abortion pill coming into Kentucky, taking the lives of preborn Kentuckians, and putting mothers at risk.
And we talked about it a few weeks ago. I hope we can follow the model law coming out of Texas, which makes everyone that gets it in their hands liable.
Right.
And I hope we can do that. I know you've got a big pastor's luncheon coming up next week.
Yeah. We've got a pastor's lunch coming up in Louisville at the KBC convention. More info on our website.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in Christ. I'm host Greg Williams with co-host David Walls, and you're listening to Family Foundation Fridays on the Authority of Love.